Good evening and welcome to the Monday, January 13th, 2025 meeting of the Orono Town Council. We'll begin as we always do with roll call. Roll call will show that with us here in person this evening, we have Councilor Jacob Baker, Councilor Leo Kenny, myself, Councilor Dan Demerit, Councilor Sarah Marks, a little jet lag, but with us, and Councilor Andrea Hardison, Councilor Rob Larway. Councilor Matt Powers is zooming in from home. And I will not share any more about why he's zooming in from home because of HIPAA. I don't want to violate his HIPAA rights. But and the same with our town manager, I suppose. Clint DeShan is right down the street, but not feeling well. So he's joining us by Zoom this evening. First item on our agenda is first item on our agenda. I'd like to call people's attention to the fact that our agenda now has at the top and will from here on forth, council goals for the municipal year. These were approved in our December 9th meeting. A lot of work and support from staff and council on these goals. More information on these goals can be found with our minutes from the December 9th meeting, including the full wording of the resolution adopting our goals for the municipal year. Under agenda review, I'd like to start by asking us to think about looking at the agenda tonight and thinking about how can we upload items to help people who not have to stay to the end, who don't have to be here to the end. So I know we've got some folks here. Jacob, can you help me think a little bit through on this in terms of the go ahead.
Yes. I don't know how this works. We'll make a motion, or I suggest we move the finance committee report to near the beginning of the agenda.
Yep.
And then also the consent agenda order 25-20 to the front of the agenda.
Okay. What I'd like to do, and Shelley, I'm looking to you for this, and please keep thinking about other items that should be moved. I would like to put items that we're moving ahead of item number 5, the presentation discussion item, just a 30-minute block of time that not everyone needs to, everyone's welcome to sit through, but not everyone's going to want to. So I'd like to move these two items without objection from other councilors. And Matt, wave at us if you have concerns. But I'd like to move those two items that Jacob just mentioned. I'd also like to move for the consideration of staff, and I'd like to move the hearing items and the consent agenda ahead of the presentation item number 5. So we'd have, so to that end, I think it should go, we'll talk about what's been referred to committee. I would like to do the Stillwater Riverwalk resolution first. Then I'd like to have the action item on the fire, the Webster Neighborhood Fire Department, and then move into the hearings and then the consent agenda. And then we'll do the presentation after that. Does that make sense to people? In terms of moving people along, and somebody may have some Christmas lights they need to take down, so we want to make it as quick as okay, so with that, agenda review, let's talk through quickly items referred to committee. The agenda review at the top is items that we've referred to committee in various forms as a council. I did want to ask if we're capturing items that have been referred to council. So we had one item, the public safety building, as I saw it, is an item that was referred to council. Clint, how are we handling, or Shelley, if you don't want to come off mute, how are we handling those?
The items that are referred to committee?
No, the full council. So like we had in our November, I was looking through the minutes this afternoon, and we talked about referring the public safety discussion to the full council.
Yep.
And I just want to make sure we're capturing those.
We can put those in a variety of ways. Since they're not a committee, I wasn't putting them on the tops of the agenda. I was just leaving it for council future item agendas. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that makes sense to me. What's that?
I have a question about
Council Marks has a
I just have a question about that. Could they be listed under tabled items, or are we only allowed to do that with an order that we've tabled? It wasn't an order, I don't think, in that particular case.
Well, since we're
Was, I
learning,
think,
I mean, we could work tabled items and refer to council as a whole.
I think it might be helpful just to keep us accountable and
Yeah.
tracking what we've referred forward to ourselves.
Or
So just
or
to
could we
clarify,
just put-
referred to council as a whole would be the public safety building.
Right.
Could you just add referred to committee / council to that thing and then have, so we've got broken out by committee and then just put full council as
Yep.
well, just to not get involved in the tabled stuff.
Sounds fine.
That makes sense to me. And I would like, we won't decide it tonight, but I'd like, we are going to talk about referral sheets later in the agenda. And I'd like us to think about linking the referral sheets in this section so we see, so people can quickly see when the old fire station was referred to, you know, the context behind that referral. So we'll talk about that later on. Okay, anything else under agenda review for anybody?
Just, so what do we do with that? Because old fire station disposition, no timeline adopted. Now, that actually is on tonight, so.
Right.
What do you say about it here? Nothing? It just comes up next time as
It just
off there?
keeps Popping up until we, you know, as a reminder to us and the public that we have these items standing in front of the committees. And, okay. All right. If we're done with agenda review, the next item on our agenda is approval of minutes from the November 4th, 2024 meeting, the November 18th, 2024 meeting, and the December 9th, 2024 meeting. Can I have a motion to put these on the table?
So moved.
And a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussions, corrections, suggestions? Okay, we have to do a roll call to approve. Matt, I'm going to come to you first every time we have to do these, all right? So you can get, okay?
Approved.
Councilor Power, all those in favor, Councilor Powers,
Approved.
Councilor Larway,
In favor.
Councilor Hardison,
In favor.
Councilor Marks,
In favor.
Councilor Demerits in favor, Councilor Kenny,
In favor?
Councilor Baker.
In favor.
Okay, the minutes have been approved. Thank you to staff for the long work it takes to bring those in. Next up will be an item for public comment. We welcome anyone to come in and speak with the town council about items or concerns that are not on our agenda. We ask that people who have items that are on our agenda to wait until those agenda items come up. And we remind folks that you're certainly free to talk about counselors and policy. Generally, we ask that no one speaks specifically about any member of the town council, the Orono town staff. Is there anyone who'd like to participate in public comment this evening? Okay. Yes, please, come on up. You can introduce yourself. And make sure you turn the mic on. Yep, thank you.
Hi, my name is Ed Gilmore. I talked with one of you, I think it was Mr. Kenny, when you were running for Senate. I met the town council, the former one, yeah, right. The former town manager with the economic director a few years back about a septic system that was put in a flood zone. All right, I got pictures of it surrounded by water. And it's a great concern because when I first went out there, it wasn't the best pleasant place ever. It looked something like where these 1930s factories just dumped everything in the water. That's basically what it was. I worked at the Air National Guard for 33 years. I've been all over the world. I've been here and there, and I've seen a lot of bad things. This doesn't constitute what Stan Broadco set up. He was one of the best code enforcements ever, and he really tutored me into what should be and what shouldn't and why. And we had a thing called setbacks. And the setbacks seemed to have disappeared under the former town manager and code enforcement officer. Anyone across the road from the lake, if you could meet the setbacks, was allowed to get a septic system. It was approved, went through the process. Stan Broadco dotted the i's and he crossed the t's. Top notch. Anybody across the street that could not meet the setbacks had to get a holding tank. Talked with Stan about it, and he said, how do we go about it? I said, give them 2 years to get a holding tank. That should be sufficient. If they need something else, let them come talk to you. They did it. Everybody complied with it until this former town manager and code enforcement come around, and they're putting this so-called new system in. We had a meeting out my place with these people, except for the town manager, and the two people from Augusta that approved this. I wasn't gonna let them in on everything I know. I've got paperwork this thick that covers this whole thing. I've already been an attorney. I'd rather not go that way. But we all need to get together and talk about it, see what we can do. What's been done's been done, but still it's not right. And apparently the former people didn't care about our safety or our health. And that's what my concern is. I did a term paper on radon. I know how it spreads. It spreads the same way with sewage and all that. Goes into the lake. Had people with illegal systems that put in pipe going straight to the lake to bypass the holding tank and went into the cove in front of my place. Now it's all bloomed up. Both swamps are all bloomed up because of it all. And it was never like that, because we had enforcement and stop everything. Now, I stopped a lady that was designing a system across the street. And I asked her what she's doing. She told me, and I said, well, you might want to look into it a little bit further. But I got a letter dated September 29th, 1999 from the Department of Human Services, State of Maine. And one of these things, it says that you have asked the office confirm the interpretation that a seasonal conversion permit would have been required for the dwelling to be used year-round, and that a holding tank would not qualify for a dwelling for seasonal conversion. It also goes on to say, and I can't even see it right now. Well, okay, right here. A holding tank was proposed because the site's 9E soils are unsuitable for on-site disposal. But here it is, 1999, and then with the former people, these septic systems got put in, and there's a federal law that covers Clean Water Act. And nobody gave the state of Maine the permission to go higher than what Congress did, or just push them aside and do it, or the town. Well, the town had to apply it to the state, and then they come and did it, and we had them out there. And he was trying to sell his snake oil to me that you could drink this water coming out of this holding tank from this system. So my answer to it was, well, let me go get you a glass and you can drink it in front of us. He wasn't willing to do that. When I asked the former town manager.
Yeah, we're going to try to be careful about, we're not going to try and be careful. We're not going to talk about staff, either current or existing. So if you want to talk about the administration or something like that, you're free to do it, but let's not. I want to be careful that we don't talk about the conduct of town personnel in a public meeting, just because that's part of our policy, and we want to be careful in that regard.
All right, what part did I go into that?
When you talk about former town managers and that's
Okay.
everyone knows who you're talking about, even if you don't name them. So I maybe just say the administration or something, the town, and we'll have to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
And we can talk about it private. Obviously, you could talk about it with existing staff, and stuff like that, but just in a public setting like this, we want to be careful. But
Well,
thank you.
I believe the existing staff you have is top notch. I mean, I really like where we're at right now, but not what occurred out there. So we need to look at that. I mean, that's my purpose of bringing it up.
Okay. Well, I heard before the meeting started that folks were talking with you, and I think I would want to give the town managers give me a nod. I think makes sense for those conversations to keep happening, and then I'd like to hear. I'd welcome hearing again back that things have been resolved, or there'd been some kind of answer to everyone's satisfaction. So, Clint, we'd want to leave that in your capable hands.
Sure.
For now, and if
Follow
you
up with Mr.
update-
Gilmore. It's my pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Do what now?
Clint's going to follow up with you, our town manager, who's he's up the screen up here, right? So he's going to follow up with you and talk with you directly,
All right.
and then keep us, as
That would be a great start.
yeah, great,
I like that.
great.
Good. Another thing.
Sure.
Talk about roundabouts.
Sure.
The roundabout we got, let me first tell you, I've traveled all over the world. I've driven in Europe extensively, UK, Japan, of course, theirs is different, but roundabouts to me in Europe were the thing. But the problem is around here in this country, and not only that, I'm a CDL operator. I drive all over the United States. And roundabouts keep the traffic going. but you gotta get everybody to slow down coming into the roundabout because anybody in the circle has the right of way.
Right.
And also through public service announcements or whatever, keep everybody safe and doing the right thing. You have overrun on the one down here on Forest Avenue in Stillwater. My grandfather used to live on the corner. And tractor trailers, when you come into them, we go slow because we don't know what the traveling public's gonna do. And believe me, they do some stunts. And we have to turn the tractor, we are maneuvering the trailer to go through the roundabout. So we won't take nothing out. So we're turning to the left first and then to the right, and then we'll follow it around. We go by it and then we turn and stay on the left so that the trailer will track. And if you had some public service announcements showing that what people should do and what they shouldn't, blind spots because when we turn that tractor, we can't see down our mirrors that well. They can get into a lot of trouble, and then if we hit them, then it goes from there.
Okay.
The other thing is I live on the Orono Landing Road, trying to turn from Forest Avenue today. A cop just went by me. I pull up to the corner and a lady broke the line right in my lane. And I thought she was going to hit me. And that happens a lot. And people just cutting down into our lane that's heading west, trying to make a left turn into our road to go home. And that's what we're forced with. I don't know if something can be done about that. I know some places around the country, they put rumble strip on the center line.
Yeah.
But just a recommendation and that's what a couple of topics to make it safe for people on roundabouts. Know what a tractor trailer is going to do.
Sure. Hey, Clint, when you talk with Ed, can you make sure you loop him in on the work we're going to do on the Route 2 corridor work and just the various opportunities the members of the public going to have to contribute to those discussions? That'd be great. So you're going to hear a lot from Clint on what you shared with us tonight.
Look forward to it.
Yeah. Thanks, Ed, for coming in.
Right. Thank you very
Really
much.
Appreciate it. Yep. Is there any other public comment in tonight's meeting? Anyone online? Who's watching the online? Cody? All set? Thank you. That'll close our public comment. And as discussed earlier in the agenda review, the first item we're going to take up is which one is that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I would look for, look for a motion to put order 2520, a resolution recognizing and thanking the Francis family for their role in establishing the Stillwater River Trails of Light on the agenda. Moved by Councilor Baker.
Second.
Moved, and it sounded like it was tripled or quadrupled. So, Councilor Baker, would you like to introduce this to the council and the staff in town?
Certainly, yeah, I guess. Yeah, so I thought, this resolution is being introduced to recognize the Francis family and their army of volunteers that assemble every year to put the Path of Lights together. I think that this is the exact type of community engagement, community spirit that makes Orono a place that is great to live and work and just to be. And it's amazing how much bigger this thing gets every single year. The blow ups were a great addition this year. So no, it's phenomenal. And I know that so many community members, both in Orono proper, but also I work in Bangor, talk about it and love it and ask me when, it's coming, when it's opening. So you all do a great job. So we as the council put together a resolution to formally recognize your all's contribution to this great town that I believe Dan has.
I do. Does anyone have any other? Well, it's been introduced. Now our process is to open it up for any member of the public who'd like to speak to the resolution. Good. Any comments or questions from councilors?
No, just obviously to echo everything he said. It really is It's been amazing watching this thing grow. And I think we probably should mention UCU, I think was also a sponsor this year. But just watching this thing grow and really becoming the talk of the region is really cool. And so appreciate all of the work that goes into it. Both, I think I know our town helps out as well, but Tony and family started this thing and just continues to grow. So thanks so much. And helping to put Orono on the map along. We got University, Pat's Pizza, and the lights now. So we're, I hope I didn't miss anything.
You can see the lights from space. That's what the BDM said.
Perfect. All right, if there are no other comment, I would echo those comments as well and say that one of my favorite Facebook pictures from this year was me and my son Greg in front of the abominable snowman, which apparently took 6 hours to install. So if there's no other comment, I'll just quickly read the resolution and then we'll have a quick presentation. And thank you to Councilor Baker for his work in bringing this together. A resolution by the Orono Town Council to recognize and thank the Francis family for their role in establishing the Stillwater River Trail of Lights. Whereas the Stillwater River Trail of Lights was established by the Francis family in 2020 to provide holiday cheer when pandemic restrictions encouraged people to celebrate the season outdoors. Whereas the Stillwater River Trail of Lights has expanded significantly since the first year to include hundreds of thousands of colorful lights and holiday decorations. Whereas the Francis family has turned the Stillwater River Trail into a true community-based event, enlisting volunteers and businesses across Orono to create what has now become an annual tradition. Whereas the Stillwater Trail annually attracts thousands of people to Orono, highlighting what a great community we are. Whereas the council wishes to thank the Francis family for its commitment to Orono. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Orono Town Council that the town officially recognizes and thanks Tony and Jess Francis for all they do to support the community through the Stillwater River Trail of Lights. So resolved this 13th day of January, 2025. Can we have a vote? Councilor Powers, you're going to go first.
In favor.
Okay. Councilor Larway,
In favor.
Councilor Hardison,
Absolutely.
Councilor Marks,
Yes, in favor.
Councilor Demerit's in favor, Councilor Kenny,
In favor.
Councilor Baker.
In favor.
Excellent. It passed unanimously. I think we're going to get a picture with a presentation of the resolution. Right there, okay. Listen, you came. Come on up. Oh my God, yeah. In fact, they put that very you did? Yeah, Matt. Ready here. And first. Okay, next up, we're doing the fire station one.
Yes.
Yep, and that's what number? No, it was not.
Committee. I think it's in the committee. On the committees, I think so. I think it's council committee reports B. Right here.
Okay. Next up on our agenda is Council Committee Report B, Finance and Operations Committee. Review and consider recommendations on the transfer of the fire station is a future agenda item. And we do have a memo, right, in the materials that Councilor Baker, we have different copies. But we're not asking to act on it tonight. We're going to have a discussion. So Councilor Baker, would you like to kick that off, please?
Certainly, yeah. So there is a detailed memo in the packet that I'm sure everybody has thoroughly read and digested. So in the interest of time, I won't go into details. But since early December, staff and the Finance Committee at various times have met with representatives from the Boy Scouts, and by Boy Scouts, I mean local Cub Scout troop to KCI, which is the asset holding entity for the Katahdin Area Council, and various sundry related parties. Before we go any further, I will put out there for full disclosure, I am a board member of the Katahdin Area Council, which is the operating entity for the council, but I will have no authority, or the Katahdin Area Council will not have anything to do with this transfer. So full disclosure, I wanted to throw that out there. So, the discussion was around transferring the old fire station or schoolhouse at various points to KCI. KCI has been talking about this with the local troop for longer than I've been around about this exact thing. And KCI has the financial capacity to not only hold and maintain the property, but with some potentially identified funding sources to renovate it or bring it up to a usable state again. So some of the items that we discussed was, if we did this transfer, the need to keep the building open for the community, which the Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts have talked about, being very amenable to that, whether it's a gear library or something else. And then another item that we discussed was, the building is on the historical register, or National Historical Register of National Historic Places, which doesn't substantially limit what can be done with the building, based on conversations Clint and Isabel and the attorneys have had. However, we as a council would want to spell out in either MOU or within the transfer deed, something to that extent, so that, we could stipulate, kind of some restrictions as far as, maybe maintaining the steeple, et cetera, coming to some of the historical characteristics. And then the final piece of this is the Historical Society. They at one time had an expressed and on-off interest about this building. Further conversations yielded they're not expressly interested in this building, nor do they have the capacity, but they would be like to be involved in the process from a consultation standpoint to make sure the building maintains its historical accuracy. So what the Finance Committee is proposing, and all of this is contingent upon KCI actually voting to be able to take on the building, which they are going to do at their board meeting at the end of this month. So what the Finance Committee is recommending, and with council general consensus, is that the town manager, along with Finance Committee, be authorized to establish steps to move forward with the transfer pending the KCI meeting. Now, these steps will include working with the town attorney, the Historical Society, town planner, et cetera, to develop any sort of MOU, deed restrictions, anything that, would spell out what can happen to the building, what would happen if, the Boy Scouts weren't able to maintain it, or if, they wanted to sell the dispose of the building. I'm assuming, the town would like the right to get the building back. So, again, I think, what Finance Committee is recommending is that we, in conjunction with the town manager, be able to move this process forward, also including scheduling the council would have to agree to all of this, including I would assume we'd want to sign off on the MOU, the deed, et cetera. But let's start this process moving forward. And the process, know that it would include public hearing, a formal vote. And so this is the beginning of a process. And so
Okay.
with that, open to thoughts.
I'd like to ask if staff has anything they'd like to add on top of what Jacob shared. Clint, you okay?
Yeah, I went perfectly. Jacob did a wonderful job. Like I said, the key next step is, once you give us the step forward, to meet with our attorneys to see if we can come up with some language in collaboration with KCI, but we got to wait and see if they are interested. So it just seems to be the next logical step to get you as a board, as a council as a whole, to agree with the committee's directions.
Okay. And before the council discusses it, any members of the public would like to be heard on this? Come on up and please introduce yourself. Make sure the microphone's on.
Is this on? Yes. Okay. Yes, I am Brian Frederick. I am the committee chair for both the Cub Scout Pack and the Scout Troop. We have both a girls troop and a boys troop. And we are chartered by the American Legion for the Scout troops, and the Kiwanis is actually our charter organization for the Cub Scout Pack. And so, yeah, I'm very pleased with the progress we've made so far. I think just reading through the memo and all of the details, they're very consistent and reasonable with, our expectations and what we would like to do. We definitely want to maintain the character of the place. It's a very special place. So that's all fine. And we do want to be able to raise money to shore up the foundation. And then if we could have actually a bathroom and some heat in there in the wintertime, that would be fantastic. And so being able to move forward with this would be great. So look forward to moving forward.
Yep. Any questions for Brian? Yep. Really appreciate your willingness to work with other members in the community too, in terms of the opportunity for the space and.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, we've worked with a number of other
Sure.
Deer Go Search and Rescue and
Yep.
the Historical Society in the past and so on.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public who'd like to be recognized? Come on up. James, if you could just introduce yourself.
Good evening, James Garrity, 109 Main Street. I sit on the Orono Historical Society Board. And as Jacob mentioned earlier, we are very interested in this process. The question I have is the discussion with KCI and the memorandum of understanding in terms of what can be done, should be done, or what is agreed to by either the council and the stakeholders in this situation occur before the presentation to KCI.
Jacob?
Yeah, how I envision this process is that Finance Committee would come up with essentially a rough draft of the MOU, and then we would run it by Historical Society, the council, and likely, KCI to get their thoughts before we bring anything formal to the council for a vote. So.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilor Marks.
James, actually, before you leave, I just wanted to say to council and to ask you, Jacob, I was thinking it could be helpful if the Historical Society already knows certain features that they would like maintained, to get that to us as soon as possible before even the Finance Committee starts a draft. If you don't know yet, that's a different thing. But if the Historical Society has features that they know they want maintained, the earlier you can get us that information, the easier it is to start right from the beginning with that knowledge.
Even better answer than mine, yes.
Great question. We don't have a list. We have taken extensive photographs of the building, interior and exterior, and that occurred this past week. We have not had a chance to meet and to put together a specific list, but we do also want to note that this is the only building in the town of Orono that has that designation. So the level of our interest in maintaining that building is pretty high. But we also fully recognize that the Boy Scouts are doing a great service for the town of Orono and for this building to take on this project. Our main concern, if I could put it from a 30,000 foot level, is that the building, A, not be demolished. Number two, that the integrity of the building not be affected, and that the interior is kept to a certain degree of existing structures. But to specific list, no, we don't have that quite yet.
I think, as you're having these discussions, keep myself and the council updated, but also when we talk about this at whatever Finance Committee we actually go through this, why don't you all come and be part of that discussion as well? along with the Boy Scouts. I mean, again, the goal, it sounds like everybody has the same end goal in mind. So now we just have to actually put it on paper.
And
Councilor Kenny?
could we remind us all when the next finance committee meeting is?
Us all should look at the calendar online.
I meant for the public, of course.
Yeah.
You don't know.
He's gonna get to it. We also,
It's the before the 27th, I think. Does that sound about right?
The next one on the website does in fact say January 27th.
At 4 o'clock.
excellent. So I'd like to thank staff for doing this. One of the first things Clint and I did once he assumed the job was go over and take a look at the fire station building with the Boy Scouts and other interested parties. I think this is a perfect example of what we anticipated when we set up the committee structure to assign things to and ask people to work through. And I appreciate people working together that process. So thank you for that. And is there my sense is, Jacob, the committee will keep working on it unless council has some big
Unless there's some
objections. Yep.
substantial objections,
Yep.
we'll continue pushing forward.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, we've done holiday lights, we've done Boy Scout buildings and old fire stations. Next, we're going to tackle public hearings. Thank you very much, Shelley, which is item number 6 on our agenda. First item up for a public hearing this is kind of the rapid fire section of our public hearings. Is item A, to consider renewal of victuals licenses for the following businesses. I, Nest Coffee, LLC, DBA, The Nest, 24 Main Street. And item II, Lynn's Takeout Kitchen, LLC, 15 Park Street. Pat, if you could introduce yourself.
Pat Esty, Code Enforcement Officer, and my recommendations are based off of fire, police, and town clerk. And staff is recommending approval.
Is there anyone from the public who'd like to be heard on this item? Any questions for Pat from the council? Okay. We will close, and I will spare everybody the bang of the gavel, which I like for theatrical reasons. But we'll close public hearing A, and move on to public hearing B to consider a Class 1A malt liquor and wine hotel liquor license and victuals license for HS RPG Orono Master Tenant LLC DBA Hotel Ursa. You're 30 words into this thing before you know who it's really for. Hotel Ursa, UMaine Campus, 1 Moosehead Road. Pat.
And staff is recommending approval.
Any questions or comments from members of the public on this public hearing? Any questions or comments from members of the council? We will close public hearing B. We'll open public hearing C to consider a renewal for a Class 1 malt liquor, wine, and spirits liquor license and victuals license for Farnsworth Enterprises Incorporated, DBA Pat's Pizza, 11 Mill Street.
And staff is recommending approval again.
Okay. Anyone from the public wishing to be heard on this one? Any comments or questions from the council? Any councilors getting ready to vote against a license for Pat's Pizza? Good. We'll close. It sounds like a no, but we'll find that out when we get to the consent agenda. So we'll close public hearing C and turn to public hearing D to consider renewal of a Class 1 malt liquor, wine, and spirit liquor license, special amusement permit for music, dancing, and entertainment, and victuals license for the University of Maine, DBA the Collins Center for the Arts, 5746 Collins Center. Pat?
And staff is recommending approval as well.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the public? Any comments or questions? Seeing none, any comments or questions from members of the council? We'll close public hearing D. Opening public hearing E to consider a Class 4 tavern liquor license special amusement permit for music, dancing, and entertainment and victuals license for Timothy Gallen, DBA Black Bear Brewery, 19 Mill Street, Suite 4. Pat?
We're recommending a conditional license where they're under construction and a condition that they will pass a C of O, a certificate of occupancy, as long as all utilities and tax bills are current as well.
Okay, so they would not, even if we moved ahead with this, they would not have the license until those items were addressed.
As long as bills are
current.
paid.
Not that
and-
they're not addressed, but they will be addressed.
Correct.
Yep,
Yep.
okay. Any questions or comments from the public? Any comments from council? what's going on over there? They put the paper up on the windows, and every time I go by, I look in to try and see what's going on, and I'm
I
excited, but
I stopped in today
Yeah.
and they're almost done.
Yeah.
They got to finish their kitchen and they got a brick oven pizza in there. They got some plumbing to take care of. The flooring's all down, so they're real close.
good,
Yep.
good. All right, well, I'm excited for them. I know a lot of people are as well, so thank you for the update. And we're pulling for them. If there are no more comments, we'll close public hearing E and open public hearing F to consider a marijuana establishment Tier 4 cultivation renewal license for Dustin Sear, DBA Irie Farmer LLC, 9 Godfrey Drive, in Orono. Pat?
And that inspection went good and recommending approval.
Any comments from the public? Any questions or comments from the council? We will close public hearing F. And we'll open public hearing G to consider amendments to the Town of Orono Code of Ordinance, Chapter 28, Personnel. We have, Clint, do you want to kick us off on this one?
Thank you, Dan. So in front of the council tonight is the changes to the ordinance. So as we've gone through, we've been working with Lori Bouchard, who's an HR consultant, and we've done this in multiple steps. So the key thing to this is we're changing the way we handle our personnel handbook and taking it out of ordinance and putting it into an actual personnel policy handbook is what we're going to refer to it as. So step one would be to repeal chapter 28, but leave a couple sections in. And those amendments are in your packet where the ordinance would talk about how the council would adopt every year by hearing an updated handbook and can do that more frequently. So step one is to have this public hearing. Once you go into this, each year you will have public hearings on the handbook itself. We're in the implementation year, so the recommendation staff has is that the handbook itself will be on the agenda for the 27th for final council review and approval, so that at the meeting in February, if everybody's in agreement with this and the ordinance changes go in place, we would not have a gap in time where we were sitting without an employee handbook or ordinances overseeing this. So the majority of the review of the handbook and of the ordinances was compliance to the new laws. It had been a long time since there had been a good update. So there are significant, but we have reviewed as a team and as a staff, and there should be no what I would consider major substantive changes to what people felt were the status quo. But with policies and an ordinance in place, there were some inconsistencies that I was seeing, and I just felt it was better to get us to one point in place and time. And the best way to do that, as my recommendation with the HR consultant, was to have a personnel policy handbook. It's one document staff can easily find. One of the suggestions that's come up during the public hearing posting process is to require this also in ordinance to be posted online. I have no concerns with that whatsoever. It was actually a great suggestion. So if that's something the council wants to include, please just let me know. But that's a good summary, and I'll turn it over to you for any questions.
Okay, I have just in what you had to say, it was, in terms of the whole handbook would be posted online, the draft handbook, is that what you said?
Well, the whole handbook was posted once. We are looking into it. It was in the December agenda. We're double checking it, but eventually the website would actually have our entire handbook there. So it'd be posted online forever with all updates, so that if anybody want to go and look, it would be right there to be seen. It would be linked out of our Muni code where the ordinances are, is what I'm hoping as well. But we got to get all these changes in place first.
Yeah, and I do think what can happen sometimes we're working a Google environment with the town, and so sometimes things that are approved for viewing by people with in the environment with an Orono email address, you have to the different click of a different button or the same button to get it so it's publicly available. Just that may have been what kept it from getting posted.
Yep.
Earlier. Yep. Sarah, do you have a question? Oh,
I have a
Council Powers, yeah. Go ahead,
just
Matt.
real quick, Clint. I don't think this makes any difference, because I think you're almost completely deleting chapter 28. So on that first PDF that you sent us on the link, that like almost the whole last part is erased. I noticed 2 orphan sentences that are unerased, and I just wanted to make sure that they were supposed to be erased. And they're the top sentence on page 14 and the top sentence on page 15, I think. I I think that those should be erased too, but I'm assuming you're just gonna erase the whole thing, so it doesn't matter. I don't think that those were an
Correct.
issue. Okay,
I'll check that.
so it's just the top of 14 and the top of page 15.
Thank you.
In keeping with our practice, I'll ask if there are any members of the public who have questions about this item or want to be heard on this public hearing. Okay, now comments from, well, typically we don't have a lot of comments from counselors in public hearings, so I do think it now's the time to ask questions though if you have some. So Sarah, do you have some?
I just wanted to say this isn't exactly a question, but I'm the person who is proposing the amendment that Clint brought up to make sure that the policy is posted on the website. And I know that would be an amended motion, I guess, unless staff updates it beforehand. I'm not sure, Clint, how that's going to proceed. Is that an amendment I'll need to propose next meeting, or will staff just incorporate? How's that going to work?
If the council is in agreement here, I would say in the public hearing, the staff could do it. Otherwise, it should set and wait, and it would be an amendment when it's finally approved.
So that's up to you. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk about it now?
Let's talk about it when it's approved, when it's time to approve it, and we can amend it.
Yep, that's totally fine. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is that there's another suggested amendment that is to chapter 2 in the ordinances, which is included here, and just sort of informationally for council and the public. That came about from a leadership team meeting where, well, Dan could speak, but Dan brought up wanting to be sure that our harassment discrimination ordinance was still in ordinance somewhere. And Clint suggested that it be in chapter 2. And I volunteered to look at chapter 2 and come up with a suggestion for where in chapter 2 it might go. And from that leadership meeting, this is the proposed suggestion I'm bringing back just to start council discussion. So again, 2 weeks from now when we meet, that'll be something else for council to look at, because otherwise, as we take out all of chapter 28, there would be no ordinance making clear for the public how to file any harassment or discrimination claim.
Yep.
So that's just informational for council. Thanks.
And we would inadvertently eliminate a year's worth of our work from that. Sure. Yeah. Councilor Larway is chair of the ordinance committee. Do you have anything to add in terms of discussion?
Just to say that ordinance committee met a couple times on this item. And we were able to meet with the HR consultant, Lori, who was really informative, very helpful. And thank you to Clint for also, doing so much great work to keep the ordinance committee, ordinance review committee informed. I will just say that this is a common sense change. Clint's already sort of laid it out, just putting everything in one place so that all parties, staff, management, council, members of the public will all understand what they're owed and what they owe, or what their obligations are to one another, so that there's mutual accountability at every level. I think this is a good change, and I'm in favor of it.
Councilor Marks?
Thanks, Rob. I really want to thank the committee for that work and the staff. I know it's been a big bunch of staff work and really appreciated. And my only other question is, at least I had asked Clint if it were possible to get some sort of version of the new personnel policy handbook that showed if any part was brand new, hadn't come out of the old ordinance or hadn't come out of previous other personnel policies. And that was sent to me with highlight markup, I believe. So if any other counselor wants to see that, I think it's good practice for us as a council not to vote on, revoking ordinances or putting new ones in place without seeing what the changes are. So I think that's available. And if other folks want to see it, I think Clint can probably send it to everyone. Is that true, Clint?
Yes, that's true. I will send it out even without anybody asking. We'll just send out copies. Yep.
I think that's great. I think it's good practice. Thank you.
I think she kind of asked, but it was kind of,
I'm just asking.
No, I'm teasing. Any other questions or comments on this one? So this will, Clint, you're a trooper for sticking with us tonight, even if you're not with us in person. So this will come back to us and be on our agenda for our January 27th meeting. And members of the public will still have a chance to ask us about it as we deliberate on it and potentially adopt it. Okay? All right. Next up on the agenda was a public hearing. I asked the public if they wanted to speak. Do you still want to be recognized? Yeah, come on up. We'll love to hear from you.
Jeff Gordon. I just have wanted to know if the council had sought legal guidance about the consequences of an employee with a grievance if they exhaust the policy and go to the Human Rights Commission with a grievance claim. Is the fact that we've gone from an ordinance, which is a law, to a policy, which is something that the council exercises at their discretion. Does that change the employee's rights or privileges in any way?
Clint, do you have an answer for us on that, or is that something?
Yeah, the town did, with the recommendation of Lori Bouchard, enlist Bernstein Shore to review everything and also to review our language. It is unique, I guess, or I shouldn't say unique, but it's not the norm that personnel policies are an ordinance. It was more a norm of employee handbooks. So kind of working with the attorney, we came up with this model where the ordinance does
Okay.
mandate a handbook. So I think there's no impact there, and that's where our attorney was recommending this being a good direction to go, as did our HR consultant. So I don't
Okay,
think
so
we're
it wouldn't-
lessening the authority because the ordinance still creates the authority for the handbook.
Okay, so going to a policy doesn't compromise an employee's rights with a grievance in any way from what we've had before. Okay.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, Clint, for being on the spot with that one. Any other, we can continue to hear from members of the public if they'd like to be heard on it, or we'll close the public hearing. All right, we will close public hearing. Gee, sorry, I have a screen version, Shelley's version, and a paper version. So public hearing G is now closed, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. Oh, acknowledgement by, acknowledgements by council members. So Matt, you can go last this time. And we'll start with Jacob and see if we have acknowledgements by council members. Item 7.
I've talked enough tonight.
Same,
Okay.
or I don't have any. How's that?
Okay, I would like to, 2 quick acknowledgements from items that are on the, for me, from items that are on the consent agenda. I want to congratulate Megan Hess for her expanded role with the town. Like all of our staff, I think Megan is an extremely dedicated public servant and really exemplifies what we want to achieve here in Orono in terms of responsiveness to the community. So congratulations to Megan for an agreement item that's in the consent agenda. I also wanted to call out the Orono Arts Fest and the team there for getting a grant that's going to be accepted as part of our consent agenda. MJ Sedlock and the team, this is what we envision, you know, when we talk about the Orono Lights, the Stillwater Lights, the Orono Arts Fest. It's kind of the thinking, what can we do to a little bit of incentive, a little bit of support, so members of our community can do really great things for the rest of us. And I think securing a $5,000 grant in support of this event, which will be in its second year later this year, is a great example. And I just wanted to call it out before we move on and passed it in the consent agenda. So thank you to both of those folks. And Councilor Marks.
Well, I just wanted to say it's nice to be back, and I wanted to thank all the staff and also my fellow counselors who made it really easy for me to participate remotely while I was away in Germany. So thank you, staff. Thank you, counselors.
Councilor Hardison.
I have a couple tonight.
Great.
I want to encourage everyone to attend the next potluck meeting or gathering. It really was a fun time. It gives you a chance to meet other people. Thank you to the Geezers with Sneakers for hosting that. I'd also like to thank everyone who came out to the comprehensive planning meeting on Wednesday. Particularly, I'd like to acknowledge Rose. I don't have the last name. Rose is 2 years out of high school and attending college and felt the importance to come and participate. She had some ideas. And I'm hopeful that that inspires other younger residents to attend and have a voice in the future of Orono.
Great. Thank you. Those are awesome. Councilor Larway.
I guess just want to acknowledge all the great work that Public Works has done so far this winter with speedy and effective plowing and care for all of our streets. I think already this year we've had a lot more snow than we had last year at this point. So just thanks for all of the hard work that they continue to do.
Okay. And Councilor Powers. Anything acknowledgements this evening?
I just want to acknowledge Emily, Annie, and Abby for getting the ski farm going. And I know we've had some snow, but we'd like to have more. And thanks for everybody for participating in that.
All right, thank you, Matt. Next up is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is moved and voted as a single action with no discussion by town councilors unless they think ahead and get it into the acknowledgement section like I just did, and or members of the public. A member of the town council or a member of the public can request that an order on the consent agenda be removed and added to new business to allow for explanation and discussion prior to the vote. Is there any request that an item be removed from the consent agenda this evening? Okay, with that, we'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
The consent agenda has been moved and seconded. Without discussion, we'll turn to Councilor Powers,
In favor?
Councilor Larway,
In favor.
Councilor Hardison,
In favor.
Councilor Marks,
In favor.
Councilor Demerits in favor, Councilor Kenny,
In favor.
Councilor Baker.
In favor.
Yep, excellent. The consent agenda passes unanimously. Item 9 on our agenda is, we were going to do the budget piece first, unless we want to move that. Do we want to do the presentation piece, Clint, number 5? First discussion of the 2026 budget.
That word, whichever the council prefers. Yep, you go that or action items.
Can we move staff out of here if we do the action items first, or are they going to stay
Sure.
with us till the end? We want to do that first? Is that okay with people? Okay. Then if that's the case, why don't we do the action items first? So, sorry, Dan, up and down. Chief Merrill, I see you at the rec center doing your workouts at noontime. I know you can handle it. So, can I get a motion to put order 2516 on the table?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Chief Dan Merrill.
Evening, Dan Merrill, Police Chief. So I think I want to just come to council and ask them or recommend to them. I was approached by Motorola Solutions. They're who we use for our body worn cameras and our in-car cameras. They approached me around Thanksgiving time, looking to offer a contract extension right now. So the gist of the memo is we're under contract with Motorola Solutions for all the services that we have right now until September of 2027. So through FY 27, we have our services, our contract price is locked in right now for them. What they came to me and offered was to add on a 3-year extension and essentially give us the cost right now for that contract in 3 years. So what the cost of their services are right now for our body cameras and our cruiser cameras would be locked in at the price that they're offering right now, as opposed to what it could be in 3 years. And based off the increase that I've seen just in the 3 years that we've had it, it's gone up about $20 per device in the last 3 years. So if we wait, I think that we could be looking at, something where we're still going to be, I would suggest that we've had no issues with this company. We've been with them for over 10 years. Their customer service is great. And so it would be my recommendation that I think that this would be a fiscally responsible item on the agenda to take them up on their contract, which would get us through till September of 2030. Questions on that?
Any questions from member of the council?
Does it, thanks, Dan. Does that lock you into this equipment and you're good with that, obviously?
Yeah, so actually, one of the other things that they came to me with, which is important, if we sign this contract, they actually upgrade us. There's a new body camera. It's called the V700 to get way down in the weeds. And they'll actually upgrade us immediately upon signing this contract right now with those new body cameras that have, like, not to get too pun driven up here at the stand, but it's literally a night and day difference. We forgot to put the link in that shows the difference between our body cameras now during the night. The ambient light that gets taken in on the new cameras is like night and day difference. Okay, you guys can laugh.
Yeah.
Dad jokes. I'm a dad.
I'll vote
too.
for this right now. Thank you. Yeah.
So it is a significantly better product that they can offer. And one of the struggles that we have right now is battery life too. These new body cameras have significantly better battery life, and the quality is better. So I think it's a good option for us.
Cool. So
Excellent. Any other questions from members of the council? Good. Thank you, Dan. Anybody from the public wish to be heard on this? Yep. Hearing none. We'll vote, Matt, we're coming to you. We're gonna vote on in order 2516. Councilor Powers,
In favor?
Councilor Larway,
In favor.
Councilor Hardison,
In favor.
Councilor Marks,
In favor.
Councilor Demerits in favor, Councilor Kenny,
In favor.
Councilor Baker,
Favor.
in favor. That passes unanimously. Dan, thanks so
you.
much. Next, I'd like to take a motion to put order 2517 on the table, in order approving a revision to the memorandum of understanding with the Orono Paddlers for use of Brownies Park.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. Hey, Meg.
Hi there, everyone. Megan Mazzella, Parks and Rec Director. The Orono Paddlers had put in a request to use some space beside the space they currently have leased access to include some rental spots, if you will, so people could put their personal boats in that space. They approached me with this in the summer. This was around the time we were welcoming Clint and what we wanted to do when groups approach us like this. So I came back to them in the early fall, and we recommended that you provide a formal proposal of exactly what you're asking, like really specific details along with some imagery, so we knew how to communicate that towards the council. They do have an existing agreement with us, which is provided in the documents, so you can see the existing agreement and their proposal for comparison.
Any questions for members of the council? Jacob?
It seems pretty obvious to me. Is there any reason we shouldn't do this?
It's simply, something that they have requested to amend such an agreement would be brought to council for those types of things.
So
That
it
wouldn't be
really
something
is
I would
just that
amend
simple. Okay.
myself. Yep.
Yeah.
Council Marks?
Can you just remind us, like, how many boats are going to be able to be stored there? Extra beyond what's there now?
I don't want to speak too specifically on their proposal, as this was something they had given to us. Looking at the imagery, it looks like they're looking at 2 additional racks, assuming you could get 3 to 4 boats on each side. Making some assumptions there, but as not to get too specific on their proposal.
And they do have in their proposal, correct, a system by which it's sort of a first come, first serve, whoever gets the spots first, as I'm remembering in the proposal. I think it's important because there may be a lot of people in the community who want to have boats there.
Right.
So there was a system in there, right, that was a first come, first serve system for the spaces.
I think what is most important about the system is that it's not being managed through the rec department. It would be managed through the paddlers, meaning that they would have, they would need to have that contact information available, that I would direct people towards them for those types of things, as it would be their property. So.
Well answered. Good. Because Orono is a town where there's a lot of waiting lists, whether it's a mug at the Black Bear Brewing or, Jacob's season tickets at the hockey games. It takes a while to get stuff around here sometimes. Any other questions?
Not a question, but I guess I'm in support of this, and I am grateful that this is being so successful that they're needing more boats, because that means we're getting more use out of the river. So, I mean, this seems like a really good community spot, and appreciate the efforts of the paddlers to rejuvenate using our great asset here. So
I assume we'll be able to put Christmas lights on the new rack too, right? It's not in the fine print anywhere, but in the spirit of the holidays, right? Okay, any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure, Andrew.
There's a section in the agreement for holding the Orono paddlers and its officers hold harmless of any damage. With addition to rental units, does it create a liability for the town?
Clint, do you have anything for us on that?
It's a public space already, so it's already covered in our insurance. So I think we would just notify them of any added improvements and they would look at it. But again, it's not covering them for damage to their property that they're putting there, was the way I read the agreement. So we're not insuring Orono paddlers for their property.
Yep. Any members of the public wish to be, any more questions? I'm sorry, any more questions from us for Megan? Yep. Tony, you want to come up and ask your question so everyone can hear? I was kidding about the lights, but if you want to ask, now's the time.
Yeah, well, I'm against the proposal that has any revenue that they're gonna be getting off of this. They got a free lease from the town. They're gonna be getting revenues off the rentals. That revenue should be shared with the town, not just the paddlers.
Okay, fair enough. Any questions for Tony? Nope. Okay, thank you. Any other members of the public want to be heard on this? Okay. Megan, I want to thank you for bringing this forward and working with the paddlers to bring us this. And I know I will say that I am, I think there's nothing more awkward than watching me try and put a kayak on the top of my Honda. So to the extent that there's an opportunity for people who don't live on the river to access the river, to get better access to the river, I think that's excellent. So thank you. And I intend to vote in favor of it. So with that, we'll do the roll call. Matt, you're going to go first again this time?
In favor.
Okay. Council Larway,
In favor.
Council Hardison,
In favor.
Council Marks,
In favor.
Council Demerits in favor, Council Kenny,
In favor?
Council Baker.
In favor.
Okay, thank you. That passes unanimously. Next up on our agenda is order 2518, approving the town manager's department work plan for 2025. Given that I talked with Clint on the way in and given that he's not feeling well and his work plan is extensive, I guess I'd like to ask him to introduce it to us a little bit today and then potentially ask the council to table this item and vote on it at our meeting on the 27th, which is why we try and have 2 meetings a month where we can vote on things so we can keep things moving. Clint, do you want to?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I asked Clint to kind of give us an overview, the high level.
Yep.
And see if we have any high level questions, and then I'm going to move we table this until next time.
Yep. So I completely support that. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. My apologies to everyone, but I am definitely a little under the weather. But the work plan, again, been working with the council. As we're learning here as a community, I'm going to talk a little bit about this, but you set some great goals during the recruitment process for your community. So part of this is how are we going to start communicating our goals differently so that they're more transparent for the public. The council adopted goals at the end of at the beginning of the municipal year in November with work with me and with staff. And those are, when you see them, when they're brought forward, those are directly in the section at the very beginning with the town manager. I actually included your council goals as well as your service promises of Orono stops and your voice matters right at the very beginning. And I gave a nice little executive summary to explain how this dovetails in with what I do with my work with staff. But again, in the town manager's work plan, I took your exact goals and worked them into things I'm doing. And then I created a 5th goal, which I called, and again, you guys grabbed it. I said the comment 80-20. So the 80% that we're doing, I kind of took the things that I do by job description and I work with staff to kind of highlight where I want to focus the next year, where with HR and some of those other points. But then again, rather than getting into what departmental or individual staff members' goals are, I wanted to show you how we were taking these and working as a team towards building those in with every department. And again, most departments, I guess I should say, of the town. And so that's where every section thereafter. They're broken into 4 pieces. It is a play off of SMART principles, in this, and you can Google that and you can get more information. But again, I wanted to make sure that we were being very methodical with what we're doing, giving clear expectations, giving clear timelines, and how we measure the success that we may or may not have. And I think I would just highlight that this is not intended to be that the only way we're successful is if we do everything on there. I would say success would be touching everything on there. And it is just as successful to walk away from some of these as it is to move forward, because right now we don't know everything we need to know about some of them. So as we learn more and get more educated, making a decision to not go forward is just as important as a decision to implement things. I'm then going to carry these into the annual budget process and capital planning, and you'll see them referenced throughout. I did use an acronym, so whenever you look at a goal in any of the departments, council approved goal, CAG, I put a little reference there if I thought it related to one of the 4 or 5 goals that the council had. So please take a look at those as you're moving through. But I'll stop there. I wish I was there in person. This would have been a much more rewarding conversation, I think, face to face between us, but that's the short version of what I'm trying to accomplish.
Okay, does anyone have any high level questions for Clint? Yep. If Council Marks, do you have one or?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. I thought this was incredibly well presented, and I really liked how you connected everything to the council goals and to your goals and down to the department level. It's really great. So huge thank you to you and staff for that. Personally, I'm ready to just vote yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to motion to table. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second. Council, so there's a motion to table on the floor. If there's any discussion on the motion to table? Good. Okay, and I guess I would offer a friendly amendment to my own amendment to date certain for January 27th. You got that already? Okay. Already got it. Thank you, Shelley. All right, if there's no discussion on the tabling motion, Councilor Powers?
Is it just because Clint's not there and we just want to make sure we're all ready? Is that the reason, or? 'Cause
Yeah, I
I'd
think
vote
that's
for
part of
too.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was why I brought it forward. I wanted to have a more just
Okay.
in-depth discussion with Clint while he was here.
In
Take a
favor
little more
then.
time with it. Okay,
In
thank
favor.
you. Councilor Larway,
In favor.
Councilor Hardison,
In favor.
Councilor Marks,
In favor.
Councilor Demerits in favor, Councilor Kenny,
In favor.
Councilor Baker.
Yep.
Good. Thank you. That passes unanimously with 6 approvals and 1 yep. And thank you, Clint. So, and members of the public who want to take a look at that, we'll be having a discussion at our January 27th meeting, and are certainly welcome to join us. Next up is we have the budget draft order 2519 and order adopting the 2026 municipal budget calendar. Could I get a motion?
Motion.
Seconded.
Yep. Moved and seconded. Clint, I think we probably ought to work in the budget discussion as part of this, that we have a budget. Well, you
So
want to just
this-
approve the calendar? Okay.
And this was at
All
the
right.
Finance Committee. They saw this in December. We
Yep.
made some adjustments. We're bringing it back to the council. That's kind of how I want the budget calendar to work through the Finance Committee to bring back up. It's variation of prior years and then also some of that, but I also worked in, tonight is the first of 3, what I call council check-ins. Tonight's a high-level first conversation. There's 2 more throughout the budget, and then you have your formal budget presentations. But we're also going to kick
Okay.
off with a capital plan at the beginning. So I don't know if the council had questions or concerns with this. This was presented as a calendar so that we could get these posted online and show everybody our intention for how we're going to develop a budget this year and try to bring, I think, a first step towards some more public engagement and transparency. I don't think we're all there, but I think budgets should evolve every year anyway. And I think it's a good step to show how we're approaching this with a more open, community-based mind.
Okay. Any questions from members of the council for Clint? Okay. Any comments from the public? Okay. We have a motion on the table. Let's move it. Matt?
In favor.
Councilor Larway?
In favor.
Councilor Hardison?
In favor.
Councilor Marks?
In favor.
Councilor Demerits in favor. Councilor Kenny?
Favor.
Councilor Baker?
Favor.
Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up on our agenda is Order 2521, resolution accepting congressionally directed funding for the purpose of improvements and expansion of the Orono Public Library, to accept the terms and conditions of the funding and authorize the town manager to execute all agreements on behalf of the town for the intended purpose of the funding. Could I have a motion to put this on the agenda, on the table?
Motion.
Seconded.
Moved, seconded, third, fourth, and fifth. Who did it down here? All right. Okay. Lori, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, Lori
Thanks for joining
Carpenter, Library Director. As you remember, the Orono Public Library Foundation applied for congressionally directed spending funds last year, and we were awarded $3.6 million. As the foundation and I were working through the application process, we came across a letter of assurance that we needed, that the foundation needed to sign to assure USDA that they would not sell or change the building in any way. So there was a little heartache about that since the foundation doesn't own the building. We've worked with Clint to come up with this resolution. So the money is coming through USDA. It's a community facilities grant through rural development. So they were the ones who were not quite sure about this relationship. So this resolution explains our relationship, assures them that the money that is taken in will indeed be used to expand the library, and the library will remain a facility that the town owns. And Clint, if I've missed anything, please chime in.
No,
And any
wonderful
questions?
job. Lori's been great to work with here as well as James on behalf of President of the Orono Foundation, Library Foundation. This is just kind of one of those moments where the red tape gets in the way at the government level, and different agencies within the federal government had different requirements, and we had to make sure that we crossed all the T's and dotted the I's. This is kind of where we'd hoped it would be at the beginning. Went away from this. We kind of came back to it here at the end. We got this resolved. It's been sent by the USDA to the Office of General Counsel, which are the attorneys for the federal government, and they're happy and pleased with what we've written. So with this would allow us to execute all the agreements, and then it'll more importantly allow the foundation to start getting their grant funds coming in.
Okay, any questions from council of Lori or Clint? Councilor Baker?
So the fourth bulletin about the town contributing 2.6, that'll have to go out to bonding. Let's say for one reason or another that doesn't. I have no idea what scenario, but that would happen. If that didn't happen, would this I guess, never mind. As I talk through this, the resolution is linking the receipt of the congressionally delegated funds with the bond. One without the other can't happen. So I guess it's okay to link those two events. So I talked through my question. Thank you.
Great. Nice job.
Well done. Yes, thank you. Okay, any other questions for staff from council before we ask members of the public if they'd like to be heard on this item? Yeah, good. Any members of the public who'd like to be heard on this item? Okay, any discussion from council? Okay, we have a motion on the table. Councilor Powers?
In favor.
Councilor Larway?
In favor.
Councilor Hardison?
In favor.
Councilor Marks?
In favor.
Councilor Demerits in favor. Councilor Kenny?
In favor?
Councilor Baker?
In favor.
Great. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Clint. Good job by everyone involved. Now, do we want to turn to council committee reports, or do we want to go back to the budget presentation? Did the council have a preference? All right, you gave me the gavel, so let's do the council, let's do the budget presentation first. And that is item 5 on our agenda, presentation discussion items for those following along in the agenda. It's our first discussion of the 2026 budget with the town manager, review of the 2026 budget big picture with a budget memo that's part of our agenda packet, including the bullets of pay and benefits summary, inflation discussion, and revenue sharing update. Town manager Clint Shan.
Hello, there we go. I had to get my screens right. Sorry. So the this is the first meeting that the council will have, and I was hoping for a high-level conversation where the council could just kind of hear some initial big picture items, get an idea of some of the data that we're starting to put together that will set the pace for the capital improvement plan that will lead into the formal budget that won't be approved until June. But again, as we look in and we starting, it's, the beginning of January, we're very early. This is probably abnormally early to be into some of the data that we're going to share out, and particularly with revenue sharing. But if you look at the memo, I wanted to make sure there's a chart there that we put in, and I'm just going to take a quick moment to share with you that shows a little bit of the history of the CPI and where we are and what we have kind of allocated into the budget. So to get an initial thought, you've been asking, this is the question I've heard the most, is what is the increase, the fixed cost increase that we have to deal with due to payroll and benefits? So, as we look at this year's total budgeted payroll and benefits were $7,334,852. If nothing changed and we rolled forward, due to all the union contracts and and again, I just picked a number, a 4% non-union allotment for COLAs, it came out to $7,628,108, which is a $250,000, $255,190 increase. This, as compared to, that's 4% to pay in benefits, but if you were looking at the prior year's budget, if you had to put that in, it would have been a 1.95% tax increase. I am not talking anything to do with schools, nor are we talking the county. The council's had an update on the county, but our focus this year is on the municipal budget itself. That other third, or our third, I guess, for what you would refer to. I did put in there a little bit about, if you keep going for the revenue sharing, the year to date, we're at 3 million. Last, fiscal year 24 was 4.6, 3.6, 3.1 million. I did send a memo out that came from the governor's office. I clarified that a little bit with all of you today. Revenue sharing is estimated as a state to be allocated at a higher amount because, and I think it's based upon initial projections. And again, I heard this myself coming into the new year, that retail sales as a nation were up. So I'm assuming that's what's playing into that. Maine probably has some increased retail sales. The governor's budget is proposed to come forward with a full 5% like it has been in years past. And if that were to happen, I would hope it would result in an increase to Orono, but the revenue sharing calculations are very intricate. So I do not want to get us ahead at forecasting what will happen. Approximately around March 1st, maybe a little earlier or a little bit later, we should get the first projection from the state of Maine, and that will be a good time to update that priority. I also showed, and on that first page, when you look at that, and I don't want anyone to confuse you, it looks like a very high increase to the IAFF firefighters COLA, but I also want to make sure there was a major change in how they did their hours and shifts that same year. So it looks higher because of the cost overall. And I just didn't want that to be seen. That is a little bit of an outlier. It's the calendar year 2021. If you'll see, there's a very high green peak that takes it well over 30%. Full transparency, that's there. But again, there was more being played into that, is in that they were changing how coverages and how that contract held our staffing models as a community. I wasn't here for that. I don't have all the detail that I could, but I have researched it with staff to get a good understanding. So that all being said, I was hoping to turn it over to council if you have some questions for me on the higher level, but it would be nice tonight. I know a few of you shared some thoughts or comments to me. I think that's what we're looking for here. What are your expectations out of this year's budget? A process? What do you would like to see us accomplish? Do you have some initial parameters on a CPI growth factor, flat funding increases, you name it, whatever that's on the minds of the council as a whole? Because I think the more input the staff receives, I receive, and you give to me and the staff in advance, the more responsive I think our budget presentation will be as we continue to move forward. So that's where I'll pause, kick it back to you and say, Dan, if you got any questions, I'm right here.
Okay, do members of the council have any questions or areas of emphasis they'd like to add?
Sure.
Councilor Kenny, come back.
So I had shared a spreadsheet, and I wonder if we can pull that up. I think it's good news that I think the governor's expressed that she hopes to keep it at 5%, but the bad news obviously is that she's also got to fill a gap that's 400 million. So, and I don't want to get, and I did, Clint sent some information out. I completely,
Yep.
I heard what you said, but I didn't read her memo to understand that piece. So the 5% is kind of arbitrary, but I do think it's important that we look at that. Looking at the spreadsheet, I just have mentioned this on several occasions that I think the increases that we've had over the years is just, it's not sustainable. So in this spreadsheet, the first one is the revenue share, the money we received from the state. These were our predictions at the time, and I think we actually ended up doing a little better than our budgeted process based on what you shared today, Clint. But we've gotten some big increases over these past 3-4 years, close to $1 million plus each year, which is significant. Obviously, there are towns, and we don't. It's a little bit of a magic formula. There's lots that go into it, and it's spread across every community in the state. So we don't know how we will end up, but I think. And then down below that is showing what our operating budget has done. And I think for me, operating budget is the key key component and something that I think we should be trying to manage too. You can see 22, 23, 24, 25, $700,000, $900,000 increase, $800,000 increase, and a $950,000 increase last year. So those are big increases. We've been able to absorb them with the big increases from the state. I don't think it's sustainable, and we talked about this at previous meetings, and that's where I grabbed onto that 5% just to sort of, because I misinterpreted what the state was at, what you're actually saying about the state, but still, you can see that a 5%, if I don't think we're going to get another $1 million increase from the state. I just don't think it's sustainable. So this is somewhat arbitrary, but say we say 300,000. If we're going to get 300,000, my goal or objective here is that we, for our part, try to hold our taxpayers harmless, understanding the county's going to do what the county's going to do, and the school's going to do what they're going to do. We don't control that. This is the piece that we need to try to control. I like the idea of setting a target up front on the operating budget. Capital is kind of easily adjusted, to be candid, I think. You can move things here and there. So I think the operating budget is, for me, is where we should focus, and whether it's 289,000 is a target or 300,000 is a target, that would represent a 2.5% increase on our total operating budget, which Clint just shared with us. 65% of our budget is payroll and benefits, so 35% is not. But for me, that's what I'd like to see us do as a council, is agree to some sort of target there, and try to manage towards that. So,
Councilor Marks?
Thanks, Leo, for giving us those figures in such a clear way. I really appreciate that. And thank you, Clint. Really helpful memo. I agree with Leo that I'd like to see us, my particular goal would be, I would like to see us in general try to hold our operating budget growth as close as possible to inflation, which I know it's listed here as CPI, but for anyone who doesn't know, Consumer Price Index is basically a measure of inflation. To me, that's how we maintain and are sure that things are maintainable over time. As Leo pointed out, we don't have control over a lot of things. We don't have control over how much money we get in revenue sharing from the state each year. So I'd like us to keep our operating budget growth as close as we can to inflation, which seems possible given the figures you've given us on payroll and benefit growth. I wasn't really sure till I saw those, but it looks like payroll and benefit growth is going to be around 2%. Inflation at the moment, last I checked, is predicted to be around 2.5%. So I like that model because that allows us, when the state money changes, we can use that money when it goes up in huge ways to put toward big capital projects, which allows us to give a break to taxpayers by not having to bond out so much money. When state money goes down, then we have to go back to the taxpayers and say state money went down. But if we keep our operating budget growth to something that's very close to inflation, then as state money goes up and down, we can respond to that by investing more or less in capital projects on any given year. And if we get through our capital projects list eventually, then we can just give a flat out tax break back. But either way, that's helping our taxpayers. If we are not using that state money and putting that into our operating budget. So that's also what I would like to see. Thank you.
Councilor Baker?
So if I understand correctly from our talks at Finance Committee, the calendar, and then a little bit of this is that, so last year, one of the big gaps that I had coming in is I didn't think I had a good understanding, operating expenses, I understood those, but that's only a small portion of our budget. I didn't have a good understanding of the capital projects, machinery and equipment we were buying, et cetera. So if I understand correctly from what you were saying, Clint, is part of this process this year is that's going to be part of the budget process, the budget discussion that, not only this is our operating budget, but these are also the capital projects that this is what we're going to spend. this is what our capital expenses are going to be over the next 12 months. Am I understanding that kind of revision to the process?
Correct. We're gonna
Correctly.
start, the very first thing I want you to do is to look at our capital needs, which is holistic, everything that we're trying to show everything we own. And when we think we would need to work at it and where the next 5 to 10 years is gonna take us. So that this year, we know this is our plan for this year, with also understanding where we're gonna be in years 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that we can start to build a consistent debt service capacity. One of the things that's gonna have to happen, I think, here in the next few months or next fall, is we're gonna have to bring in a professional, someone that can give us some advice on how to manage our existing debt. The past 2 times, it looks like you've taken on large bonds. You've done some sort of a refinancing as part of it. And I think we're gonna be in that same situation again. So I think that's gonna be, this year, if we could just start with what it is we have in the capital plan, set some good goals around that. Staff's meeting next week, more on this. Or end of this week, actually, is meeting more on this, to get you that really good refined list of everything the town needs. Because I think it's sometimes missed that we take on other items, or we buy or add and grow, and not understanding that the full cost of what it is we have to maintain as we move forward. So let's get a better handle of that, so we know what commitments we're making to future tax years.
Okay, any other questions? I'm gonna have something, but anybody else? Andrea?
As we go through the budget process, of course, I'll be learning. So one of the things I've wondered about is, with the last 2 to 3 years of reductions in different line items or departments, I'd like to know how, as we plan for next year, how have those cuts affected the current administration? And how have we prepared for grants that are ending?
Can I just ask, when you say reductions, I'm not, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you major reductions in major lines that I can think of. So I don't know, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
And that's part of where I'm learning, is the correct verbiage to use in figuring out where budgets started, where they ended up, and how is that affecting administration now.
Oh, we left the position open in Public Works. We've had some, I don't know how you characterize what you've done with your administrative team in terms of assistant town manager, and
Yeah.
we had Mitch and Bell, and now we have just Mitch. And so with a expanded role. So, those kinds of things. I think those are good questions to
And I
ask.
think we can get some of those with some numbers to it. It may not just be a reduction, but it's initially where the staff wanted to be and where it ended up, and what the outcome has been and how we've addressed that. So I think that's part of the good, what I would call the executive summary of the budget. What have I done since I've been here in the year? Excuse me, to address some of the things that have happened. My apologies.
No problem. I truly am grateful that you're here with us tonight, because it's been a month since we had a meeting, so it's nice.
Yeah.
Dan, can you put Leo's numbers up on the screen again for just 1 minute?
Sure. Cody, you got those? I do like the idea of having material, as we think about these memos and things like that, having them in a presentation format so we can get them up on screen for people who are watching, people here and people watching.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to take a quick look. So like partly to Jacob's question on how much of our budget is operating budget versus capital. So that shows pretty clearly there, right? Because we can see that operating budget is 11,350,000 up there, and our full budget's about 15,000. So it's about 2/3 of our budget that's operating, and a little bit more than 2/3 actually,
Yeah.
just to answer that question.
Nope, appreciate that. There's also, yes, both are big numbers. Yeah.
So in the same, I guess, vein as I was talking about the operating budget, the capital, that makes sense, obviously, that we're looking long-term, but I do think that we should think about a number there, because we jumped up 55%. If you look at that bottom, we went to $3.3 million on our capital last year, which is the biggest number we've ever had. Went from 2.1 to 3.3. So before that, 1.7. So I think maybe I don't like having that number just sort of shake out you know, here's all the things and here's what it is. I feel like, and we also spent down our entire reserve pretty much last year. So we couldn't, I don't, I mean, they're almost probably close to $1 million on reserves, or 800,000 or something. So, I mean, I don't think there's any way we can be at 3.3. You guys tracking what I'm saying and
May I?
how I'm looking at that?
Please,
Leo?
Clint, yeah.
Well, no, and I think the missing piece here that capital planning is going to do is we want to start showing you the sources of how you pay for your capital budget. Some of that came from the 3.3 million. Some was taxes, some was reserves, some was old bonds, and some's your TIF budget. But that's being missed in the conversation, I think, to some degree in here, because the amount that's going to affect the municipal operating budget is how much of the operating budget is kicking in towards the capital budget. So I want to get that really pulled out so we can understand that number by itself. It's been in that 880 range for a few years, give or take. But that 3.3 million was based upon a lot of leftover funds that last year we came forward and said, well, let's budget it. And again, that's where I want to kind of get into this capital budget. Yes, that led to a $14+ million municipal budget last year. But again, a lot of it was our own money that we were doing it. So you're probably going to see somewhat of a dip. I'm not certain, but in all likelihood, we're going to return to more typical capital spending lines without that buildup and influx of funding. I just want to get into that. And that's where I'm working with the team to get that information to the council in advance. And I think it would help us to see it in advance. I'm not saying you should or spend more, but I think it'll help us understand what the overall need is, and that we can be transparent with the community saying, you know, if we did everything, we'd have to spend this much, but we can't, and we're being more fiscally prudent. This is what we're looking for. And we're thinking in about 5 years, we're going to do a bond because we're going to free some debt capacity up. And that's when we're going to do some bonding. And that will allow us to bring some of the things in that we're delaying. And here's the plan for that bond package. But again, we've got a lot more to work on that. But I just want to make sure everybody understands that capital budget, that's your expense line of 3,356,000. That doesn't mean that all came from property taxes in fiscal year 25.
And maybe if Jacob had negotiated a $1 sale of the fire station to the Boy Scouts, we'd be in a better. Next time. Yeah. So anytime I can blame Jacob for something, I'm going to do it. So, yep. I would like to say, when I think about CPI, I think about, I think that's a really good target to the extent that it's a hittable target. I will say that this council has authorized contract agreements with, you know, a number of our bargaining units that are in place, and we need to be mindful of the fact that if, you know, CPI is 2.7% according to the Department of, you know, the Department of Labor or, you know, Commerce, whoever computes it, and we also have to be mindful of how the different agreements we've approved impact that. And of course, we have to honor those because those are agreements we made as a council. They're long-term agreements, and they're going to impact our what we spend moving forward.
Just to comment on that,
Yep.
that is obviously, that's what Clint did share. So payroll and benefits are about 65%, and they're at 4%, I think, right? So
Yeah.
that is higher than CPI, but it's 65% of the operating budget. So that does and that basically would sort of suck up the 2.5%. That would use it up, basically, the 2.5%. So that means we're looking at the rest of the operating budget to not increase. And just to verify, Clint, on that is, you said that's just rolling forward exactly what we have. There's no built-in staff increase or anything with that 4% that you gave us?
No, it's the staff that we have as of January 1 brought to date for the next fiscal year. What if we kept it, you know, that way? All filled
thanks.
positions, which is no increases. It's a flat staffing model.
Okay. Rob or Matt, you have any questions or comments at this time? Okay, this was a council discussion, so it's not an item where we'd have comments from the public on. Anything else, Clint, from us moving forward on this topic? Good. Nice job. Thank you. And thank you for coming prepared to talk about it. Next up on our agenda is item 10, council committee reports. Matt, the first council committee is Community Development Committee.
We have
Do you have anything
nothing,
for us?
we don't have anything to report right now.
Okay. I do think, you mean, Andrew, we need to connect with staff to schedule. We had to cancel our January meeting, so we need to connect on, and I think I'm the one who, I think the email chain ended with me, so I apologize for not responding to it, but we have to, we should come up with another meeting. So maybe that's something we could do at the end of today's meeting. Next up is, Andrew, you had something though on, we got to complete a referral for the holiday tree lighting in Manor for 2025. Do we have to do a vote on that, or is that a referral form that we just have to complete?
You agreed to send it. I just need a copy of the form.
Okay. And we have copies of the form here, so we'll ask.
Yeah, there should be some.
Andrea.
If there's none right there, they're down by my spot at the end of the desk.
Okay. We'll ask you to complete the referral form since it was you brought it, you initiated the discussion. Okay, great. Next up, the Nomination Evaluations and Council Policies Committee, Councilor Marks.
Quick update, we're continuing to work on the 360 evaluation or performance review process. We have one, we think we can finish it at our meeting in February. So I believe, Clint, the plan is still to bring that report with recommendations back to council on the second meeting in February. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, I would agree. Yep.
That's where we're at.
Thank you, Councilor Marks. Next up is the Ordinance Review Committee, Councilor Larway.
Yes, so one big item, the first item that we had been working on, I think we just voted to accept, which is, or voted, we had the public hearing on the personnel change, not changes to personnel, but changes to personnel ordinance. The current item before the Ordinance Review Committee is to start looking at our ordinances in some prioritized way, updating them. We were set to meet on the 8th of this month, but due to several scheduling conflicts and a feeling that there wasn't an immediate urgency to reschedule for this month, we'll be meeting on the second Wednesday of February at 10:30, if our schedule remains the same, to start digging into those. Shelley did, thank you very much, set up some initial materials for us to look at. So that would be Dan and Leo and myself are on that committee to start thinking about providing some feedback on potential other changes in our ordinances that are recommended by staff. I think that's just about all I have. Those things have been forwarded to us by Clint. So that's everything we have.
Thank you, Rob. Anything else, Jacob, for Finance and Operations? Yep. Good work today on that memo, by the way. That was great. Council Chair update. I will say that really impressed with how these reports are coming up, the committee work. And we are going to continue to work on the referral, the committee referrals. And Sarah, Clint, and I will talk about probably our next leadership meeting, particularly now that Amanda's back. Is she back full time now? Yes. But linking those in the update at the front of the meeting, I think that'd be a good step for all of us and for the public. And we have a town manager's report.
Thank you. So again, being an off week and meeting with you, I didn't send out anything more formal. So here's the items to discuss. The first one's police drug asset forfeiture money. And we have received some funds. And again, I think this is the question I have for this is that it can come to the council for a full presentation, but it may be something with those funds coming in and how they could spend. Does the council prefer it go to a committee first for some conversation there? But I wanted to make sure you were aware that if at a minimum, if it's not coming up, you will be seeing this on an agenda very soon. And it's all, like I said, drug asset forfeiture money at the state level. I'm a blank. It's been a long day and I'm not feeling great. But the large use is for rapid response for people that have had drug overdoses, is buying that medicine. And I'm blanking on the name of it of all the days.
The Narcan? Yeah.
Yes, Narcan. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Purchasing more Narcan. And again, that's something that the council would have to have a conversation on.
I would encourage you to bring it and then we could just move it to committee if we feel like we have to, if we don't feel like we can. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring it to the agenda and I'll have the chief write it up. The next one, your after school update. I just wanted to share, we've had That's had some growth over the past 2 years. We work in collaboration with the schools, and it's a great partnership with the University of Maine providing staffing. Town runs it, and we use the elementary school to provide the service. And it's a great model. And with all great things, it's getting high demand, and we're at full capacity. And they've had wait lists every year for the past 2 years, and we can't get to everybody. And there's more push for more coverage. They want us to bring in more kids, and we just don't have the facilities as we continue to grow it. So it's going to be a growing problem. It's a good problem because it's a successful program. But again, in that, we have a lot of households or families that wish they could get in. Again, making you aware of that as we move forward, I think is just the biggest thing to share. Item C, townwide building access controls. The library has to look at its access controls for the addition. And I've asked the Public Works Department, Bill Cody, to look at the entire town to figure something that would work well for them all so that we'd be under one system for access controls as a community. If we ever had to lock all buildings in emergency, it would be under one set and one set of controls. So he's researching that. And I just thought it'd be important to update the council that that's being looked at. No decisions. I'm gonna skip D for a second. Crosswalk painting, that's another one. Bill Cody in Public Works has been looking at the way they're doing the crosswalk painting. They're probably going to buy a machine themselves, inexpensive, so they could do some line striping on their own to supplement what they're doing. I don't have the exact figures, but it's a couple $1,000s is what I've been initially told. So I told him to get more information to me and share it. This isn't going to replace what we're doing, but there was a push to doing more paintings. The line striping for crosswalks would wear out. This would allow us, they're so busy doing this work, it's hard to even find vendors. He's nervous about bids for this year coming. F, the senior taxpayer assistance. That was a council request last summer. I did some research. I'm sharing out some of it. I'm going to move that off to the fall. Anything we would want to implement there is going to be more in a homestead exemption model, which means that and it's an unfunded homestead exemption. So for those of you that are aware, the homestead exemption is a discount on your local property taxes, and the state reimburses the town of Orono for that. But an unfunded one would allow the discount to that taxpayer, and then the difference is paid by other taxpayers. That's the way the senior taxpayer assistance programs work right now. So I'd like to workshop that in the fall so we're not missing. I didn't want to let that fall by the wayside. But with everything going on in this year's budget, I think we can look at that next year as well. Next to the last, workers' comp for fiscal year 25. We have some very high loss ratios. Our mod factor continues to grow, and we have a very high increase. It will exceed our workers' comp lines for the year, but I feel that the departments will be on budget. I've worked with the finance department. If that changes, I'll have to present to the finance committee and to the council because we're not allowed to go over by departmental expenditure. But it is a significant increase. Rather than negotiate any deals, we're going to pay it as billed for the following year, which puts the majority of the payments in the January 1 to June 30th timeframe. But again, we did budget for it. We will be over, and I think it's time to just not push other problems into future tax years. Let's own it for the responsibility we have now and take care of it. If more is needed, I'll bring that back. And the last one I should have put was just 6 months. It's been 6 months. I'm just over, back 5 days more than my 6-month anniversary. And I wanted to thank the council and the community again. I am very impressed with the progress we are making. And I don't say that from a sense of being egotistical. The team, the staff level, the council, the support by the community, even last week at that comp plan meeting, it really seems to be a common voice that resonates over and over in Orono. Meeting what I heard and what I expected when I came here. I'm excited for the growth, the transparency, building better budgets, and building a stronger future for our community. And I don't want to lose sight of that. I mean, every day is almost like another day of me applying for the job. I don't want anybody to ever feel I've lost my energy for what I'm doing or for what's going on in the community. And having saying that to you today with the cold I'm going through, I can't wait to get out of this meeting, to be genuine, because I'm feeling that great. But I do want to make sure it's known to the council and to the community that this is great. I do enjoy everything that's going on, and I think we're making great progress. We're not going to change anything overnight, and whatever we do now will probably evolve more in future years, and I'm just excited to be a part of that process. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Clint. It's really appreciate you ending on that. And yeah, you did joke that you're now at a point where you can't use your, I'm brand new to the job, but if you get in a real jam, feel free to keep, don't be afraid to use it if you have to, right? All right, is there any questions for the town manager regarding the town manager's report? Yep. We do not have any public petitions. Item 13 is future agenda items and council requests for supporting items. Does anyone have any? Council Marks has one.
Thanks. I actually have two.
Hold on.
There you go.
Yeah, all
I
right,
have
go
two.
ahead, go ahead.
My first one, I wasn't here when the Orono Stops presentation was made, but I got to watch that. I was sick last month, and thank you so much to the chief for that. This is just a request that whenever we next revisit Orono Stops, can we also get a report on how we're going to move forward with enforcement initiatives for crosswalk safety too? I know that was part of our original council resolution around that, was not just the school buses. And I know we're doing lighting changes to help with the crosswalks at Westwood, but I also wanted us as a council to have a discussion and or to get an update from staff on what's happening with enforcement initiatives to make getting across other crosswalks in town easier. I realize Westwood will probably be addressed by a light. So I don't know when we next get that update, but I want to put that on the record that it's important to me that we circle back on that part too.
Absolutely. We'll definitely have an update in the spring.
Sounds great.
Yep.
And my second one goes back to our agenda item way back at the top with 6G with the public hearing on the changes to Chapter 28 with the personnel ordinances. Since part of what's being also suggested in that last attachment was changes to Chapter 2, I think we're going to obviously have to call another public hearing on that. And I guess my question is, what do you need from us, Clint, as a council to get some kind of public hearing called on the changes to Chapter 2?
I don't think I need much. If the council's in general consensus, I could work that up for the January 27th agenda to call the public hearing, and it would just be queuing up, a week or two behind the Chapter 28 changes.
Any council objections to a public hearing on changes on Chapter 2 also?
I don't love the idea of I don't love the idea of leaving something that we intend to leave in ordinance out of ordinance for 2 weeks.
Me either.
So why don't we talk about that at our leadership meeting on our council? We have just for transparency, Clint, Sarah, and I meet typically on the Monday between our council meetings to talk about upcoming agendas. So why don't we add that to our list of things to talk about at that meeting?
And I'll come up with options.
Okay, that'd be great.
But so Jan, what you're saying is that we might have to delay the other vote so that they both happened at the same time, correct? But we still need to get the public hearing in the works to move forward on anything on that.
I agree. Okay.
So that's something that's important.
Okay. Are there any more future agenda items? I have one. Anybody else have one? Okay. Clint, the power goes out in Orono more than it should. And it's for a lot of people, it's me having to reset the clock on my coffee maker is a burden, but a lot of people are experiencing things that actually matter a lot more than that. What do we know from Versant? What can we find out? And if you can't find out, what can the council do to either through the Public Utility Commission or just to figure out what's going on?
How about you give me till the next meeting to give an update on it? I'll reach out to the channels I have there. I have some great contacts, and we'll see what we can find out and what they can provide for information.
Okay. If they can't answer questions through those kinds of things, I'm speaking for me and the people who've reached out to me. I know that I'm going to want to see what we can do through the regulatory process to figure out, just get an answer. So that's
let me get something. Let me try real quickly first and see where we are.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay. Next up on the agenda, thank you for that. Next up on the agenda is public comment. Any public comment? Jeff?
The topic of ordinance review came up, and I can suggest some low-hanging fruit to attack on that. We're still having.
Is the mic on, or can it be turned up? Or
on? It's on.
Is it on?
Okay, I'm in.
Leaning tight.
Low-hanging fruit on the ordinance reviews. I brought up in the past the issue of building permits for projects that never seem to be completed and never seem to be an end to them. And they are an eyesore. They are a negative influence on the appearance of the communities and neighborhoods where the projects are. I'm not here to embarrass anybody or mention any names, but I think you know what projects I'm talking about. And they're still no action on these projects that can be seen at all. Also, I've mentioned in the past the problem with the trash cans. I am a regular pedestrian walking up and down Main Street from my end of town to down here for meetings and dinners and whatnot. Walking the street during the hours of 4 to 7 p.m. is incredibly dangerous. The people that pass through our community as automobile commuters, I can't say where they're coming from or commuting to, but we all probably know. They demonstrate extreme disrespect for me as a pedestrian. They do not stop for me when I am in the crosswalks. They look at me in the face as they go by in the crosswalk. Something has to be done about this or someone's going to be killed. If you drive up and down Main Street, you cannot see a pedestrian very well on the sidewalk, particularly at that time of night, headlights, glare and whatnot. But when I step out into the crosswalk, I expect the traffic to stop. They're required to stop by state law, but they by and large do not stop. And something has to be done about this. And I would urge the council, as you're looking over the budget, to give the public safety director the resources they need to do something to have an effect on this. We've tried, you know, the radar car sits out there and whatnot, but it's not having the effect of increasing safety. And it's extremely dangerous. I also mentioned the trash cans blocking the sidewalks. And that's something I've mentioned in the past as well. I think that should be the responsibility of the property owner to take care of that. We do have an ordinance that regulates the placement of trash can disposals on properties. And virtually everybody in town is in violation of that ordinance the way it's written now. And it really needs to be corrected to reflect the reality of what we're dealing with now with these large trash cans and the way the trash is being collected. But it should rest with the property owner. If it's a rental property, the landlord should make the arrangements with their tenants to take care of the trash cans. But at the end of the day, it's the responsibility of the property owner to make sure that that trash can is not in the sidewalk blocking someone who's on a walker or in a wheelchair. It's just not acceptable. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there any more public comment either online or in the room? Okay. Seeing none, we'll end public comment for the evening and we are going to move into executive session. I would take a motion to move into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA section 405, 6D labor negotiations.
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call. Matt?
In favor.
Rob?
In favor.
Andrea?
In favor.
Sarah?
In favor.
Dan's in favor. Leo?
Favor.
Jacob?
Favor.
Okay, we're into executive session before 7 p.m., which is, oh, Mitch? Okay,
I'll be leaving and joining you.
you'll be leaving, joining us, and we're not going to have any meetings online, so the Zoom will go down and not come back up. No votes. Yep, thanks.